thank you for taking the time to join us today for the UCF Apps support webinar. My name is JP. I'm the Associate Director for Support Services here at the University of Central Florida. Really glad that you're able to attend today and just kind of learn a little bit more about UCF Apps. And I think more importantly, what the topic of this conversation is today is around how we all can help each other support UCF Apps moving forward for this semester and beyond, because I think it's really taken a different focus than it may have in the previous semesters. And so we wanted to take an opportunity just to talk with everyone around it, show some resources, show how it works, just a quick one there, and then really just take any questions around it as we launch for the fall. I think it's going to be a pretty important technology and a service that I think our students, faculty, and staff will be using. So all the help we can get to help support it, the better, and the more equipped you can be to help support the folks that you support. So basically, the first thing that I wanted to do is just talk about what UCF Apps is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. So we have the desktop here, and it's it.ucf.edu/UCF-apps or apps.ucf.edu. And so when you go to here, it's basically going to have a video here. It's about a minute long. It talks at a high level of what UCF Apps is. And so for those that don't know what UCF Apps is, essentially it's a virtual lab that's available to students or faculty or staff, anyone who's an active employee at the university, anytime, anywhere, on any device that they use. And so we've had it around here for about the last 5 years or so. Multiple tech fee purchases over the last few years that have allowed us to continue this project moving forward, and it's really more of this point of service. And so the tool really allows you to use a variety of different applications that are available to students that they need for their coursework. And so basically most times we ask folks to go to apps.ucf.edu and log in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take you through a quick demo of what this looks like logging in to UCF Apps and what you might see. So when you log in to UCF Apps the first time, it's going to go to this place called ucfapps.cloud.com. We actually moved from on-premises to the cloud last year for last fall. And so that's really helped a lot because it frees some time up for Rob to really focus on a lot of the use cases. And by the way, Robert Connors is really the brains behind UCF Apps. I'm just kind of the spokesperson, I guess, if you will. Robert Connors is the active service owner for UCF Apps, and he's really done a lot of the back end work to keep it going and transition things to the cloud. So when you log into UCF Apps the first time, basically it's your nid@ucf.edu, and if your password's correct, then you will be able to log in flawlessly. JP, or obviously it's nid@ucf.edu, and then it would be your nid password. And what this does is brings up a panel here, and this is really what you'll see. Now, of course, my view, I'm a sort of a super user, so I'm going to see a lot more things than most folks are. But basically, all these applications up here are ones that can be opened on their own, and you can use and do your work. Something recently that we actually just added here for this fall semester is the ability to put physical labs in UCF Apps to be able to log into them. And then of course we have the traditional UCF apps which are the individual apps. So just really quick, I'll show you one of the most common apps that we have launched here. Now you'll notice that what I'm using here is a web browser. So I have a client, and you can install the client on a variety of different platforms, which I'll show you some of the tutorials on how to do that later. But I thought it'd be kind of cool just to show you what it looks like if you just use the web browser to access everything through here, and you'll see the performance and how well it works. There we go. All right. Yeah, so Rob, I probably haven't logged into UCF Apps in a couple weeks. So I would imagine that what's happening here is a VM's getting stood up in my session, profiles being created, and all that stuff in the background's happening. And now, so I'm basically at at SPSS now, which we'll need to update the license here, it looks like. So we have SPSS. Basically what you can do here now, this operates just like a normal version of SPSS. So I can open data from different places. We actually highly recommend the use of the K drive. So that is so I went to File Open, I went to Open Data. So basically there's this place called the Nights drive here. And you'll see I have some test data sets here that I've worked on and given some demos on before. You open that, it in theory will open up the data set, and then you can run different analyses on it, like, I don't know, different things on here, and you can basically just do your normal, either some more simple descriptive statistics or things that are more complicated that take more models and do that. Then you can save it out to your desktop, or you can save it out to the K drive, and then you can upload it to places like web courses and your email and things like that. The reason I'm not going to go into all of that is because there's actually a really good video that we put together that I'll show you in a minute on how to do all that. But I do want to, before we leave and go to the next area, is just talk briefly about the desktops that just came about. So we essentially, again, have these desktops. We have the library PCs and the Tech Commons Lab, for example. So I'll launch the library PC. And so what this does is basically we've grouped all of the library PCs that Matt has made available for us. And essentially, this chose one for me at random and is logging me into the desktop now. So I don't have to pick and choose which one I need. It basically looks at the ones that are available in a pool, and it chooses one that works. In the library, that's a great way to do it, because all of the library PCs are the same. Have the same configuration, have the same software on them, so it's very easy to kind of apply and do that. There we go.
Yeah, keep in mind here the important part here is that there's no installation required. Right? And this could work on a Windows PC, a Mac OS, a Linux box, a mobile device, an iPad, anywhere that the modern browser or the Citrix workspace has an application. You can have access to all of these resources without having to install anything additional. So this is great for like on the moment, need something right now type scenarios. And we're really happy that we've been able to come up with a solution to make sure the students could access those resources even if they're away due to COVID or any other reason.
Right. And so now you can see I logged in. So obviously once we get things cleared up with the ticket and the group policy and printers, you'll see that the process of getting on was pretty quick. So you also see something pretty cool. Do you remember those files that I opened up earlier in SPSS? So in UCF Apps and in the library, we both have drive redirection turned on to the K drive. So if a student logs in to the K drive or UCF Apps, they'll have access to the same data. And so that's amazing, right? Because that's the biggest problem, is trying to figure out where your data is and how to work on it. So if you're using the K drive, you'll have access in both places. But of course, you can always open up Chrome, and you can go to your OneDrive or go to web courses, and you can download it from there. I'm using this is the browser on the virtual device. I mean, I'm using it right now, and it's really fluid, and it's basically just like I'm there. Okay, so let me go ahead and go to our next topic then, is supporting UCF apps. Basically, if you go to it.ucf.edu, we've come up with some really good documentation on helping support UCF apps. So we found that basically the two biggest issues with UCF apps is having issues with installing UCF apps and having issues with using data in UCF apps. And so for installing UCF apps, we've created, so the couple ways you can do this, right? When you go into UCF apps the first time, it'll give you an option to either use a web browser or download a client. And so if you choose the web browser option, really you do nothing else. It just starts working just like I'm using this here. These are all web sessions right now that I'm using. If you go to install the client, then you can, you basically get a little bit of enhanced experience. There's integrations with your local data and resources, so you can work on something in UCF apps and say print it to your local printer, for example, and do a few other things. So it does provide some additional, some additional resources that you can access, but it's not required. So, but to do that, there are a few different ways and places you can go. If you search for UCF apps at it.ucf.edu, that's probably your best way to just get kind of the kind of the summary of all the different things that are available to you around it. So our most popular article is installing it on Windows 10, as you can probably imagine. We also have one for Mac OS and Chromebook. Chromebook actually was a recent one that came up. This thing works, UCF Apps works amazingly on a Chromebook. We have iOS, we have Android as well. So just for an example on Windows 10, you'll see that basically we really took some time to build some a lot more picturesque, I guess you could say, documentation on how it works. So you could take this document, work through it yourself, and you can see that it's very easy to follow. And for a student or for a faculty member that's never seen it before and needs help step by step to go through it, we created this article specifically for that. And so this one's pretty popular, 8,000 views. But we have ones also again for Mac OS. So I'll bring up the Mac OS one real quick. Very similar, but it's basically going to the website, and then eventually I think it goes to some. Let's see if there's anything that's Mac related here. Yeah, there you go. There's a couple of screenshot difference here, but for the most part, it's the same. It does show you how to add your account, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this was actually done in Catalina, so it's hopefully the screenshots are fairly accurate and updated. Also, so that's kind of the installing. So what I would say is that if you don't already have it, just remember it.ucf.edu, search UCF Apps, and that will get you there. If you have anyone that ever comes up to you and asks you basic questions about UCF Apps, do that first and send them links to these articles. And I guarantee you that if they're learning how to install UCF Apps, I won't guarantee it, but I'll say most likely that they'll be able to get what they need to get going without having to reach out to you again. And so the service desk uses this quite a bit. I know that our desk side teams use it. And so just want to make sure the campus community knows, because again, if you get a question about it, most of the work is done for you. So you should be able to use these for installing. For opening, saving, and using files, this is a new one. This one tells you how to use data within UCF Apps. And so first thing we basically, if someone ever comes to this article, we want to make sure that they've installed UCF Apps. And so we have some cross links to some other places. But we also have, essentially a pretty significant document that takes them through step by step on how to use what we recommend for UCF Apps, which is the K drive. And again, the reason why we recommend the K drive is because it's available in both UCF Apps and and most of our on-premises labs, but certainly the two public labs that we have in the library and in Tech Commons. And it's called the K drive, Knight's drive. But basically, it's a storage. Each student gets about 4 gig to store their files, which isn't huge, but from semester to semester, it's really just a space to use in their work. And we find most students are completely, satisfied, I guess you could say, by using that volume of storage. But we have the K drive here, and this basically takes you through using the K drive on all the different scenarios. And so, for example, here this is using SPSS, and it shows you how to open SPSS, how to get to your data, how to go to the K drive. Maybe there's if you have a sample file, which sometimes faculty work with us to have some of their curriculum files in UCF Apps in the L drive, so that might be a place for it. But most likely, most of the assignment files that we're seeing are now on web courses. They're not using that as much anymore. It's mostly through web courses. So we show folks how to download from web courses, download from Knight's email, run the data sets, and then upload them back. And really, the biggest thing that we just have to remember about using data in UCF Apps is that the data really has to be near where the application is running. So as long as the data set or the file is either in the K drive for smaller data sets, we actually would recommend the downloads folder, since it's actually on the virtual machine in UCF Apps for larger data sets. But once I went through with that faculty member and we talked about the downloads folder and we worked through it, and he actually had a Mac, and so he was working through the PC side, and of course UCF Apps, the backend is all PC and Windows based. So he's using the downloads folder, he's running the data set, and he was amazed to see, it wasn't as fast as his machine, but it was pretty close. It was probably within seconds of an analysis, whereas before he was running the analysis and it was taking a lot longer. And the reason that it was taking a lot longer is because he was running it off of his local device and basically sending the, all the bits for every, the file up to SPSS over the internet. And so, you can imagine, maybe you can work on a Word document that way because it's not like too heavy, heavy performance. But when you're trying to do an analysis on a 750 meg file and it has to go to the internet and back to try to give you the results, it took, I think it was like 100 and something minutes for an 8-second analysis he did on his on his local instance of SPSS. So, basically once we showed him how to get the data there, he was just, amazed on how well it worked. And so I was excited about that because we got one faculty member turned into, a UCF Apps advocate or a champion. But the problem is that I'm not going to be able to run around and talk with every faculty member that's, doesn't think UCF Apps will meet their need. And so what we did was, in addition to this tutorial, and of course this webinar is an extension of that to let you know that it's available, is that we created a walkthrough video. So basically what I did is kind of what I'm doing now is just really opened up a Teams meeting, recorded it, and then basically just walked through in 16 minutes how to use the files in UCF Apps. And so it's 16 minutes of me talking. It has little pop-ups and things like that in here as well, but it shows all the different steps. I'm actually working with CDL to have this hosted within their YouTube channel as a sub-channel. But basically you have timestamps as well for some of the more common things that are there. We found as soon as I've sent this video out, this is something that has really been well received for those that have asked about it. And I think a lot of it is just, for UCF Apps, it's really just getting it, getting it and understanding that, oh, okay, this is how I have to work with UCF Apps. And then from there on, it's kind of a breeze. So we're going to see probably more folks say things like this to you. Maybe you'll get it at, at the walk-up desk, or you'll get it within your college to say that, hey, UCF Apps is slow. The first thing I would recommend is to show them this, make sure, ask them the question, are they using their data the way that the video says, or the way that this document says, through UCF Apps? And if you're not, here's a video that will take you through it quickly. All right, so basically, yeah, if you go on here and search for software and apps, the UCF Apps request will be on here, hopefully. Okay, there you go. And so what we've done here is kind of revamped it, and we've taken a different approach to how we normally do requests in ServiceNow. And so what we've taken the time to do is really make it a lot more verbose, and put some helpful instructions. I think they're helpful, and then cross-link into things that maybe might have gotten someone here in the first place to ask for this request, and to help deflect a little bit to maybe other ways that they could get the help that they need. And so for this request here, so this is for, we basically call out specifically, it's for UCF Apps. We've had requests come in before that were UCF Apps, but they were actually for like PeopleSoft and Qualtrics and other apps, but not the UCF Apps platform. So we tried to kind of make it more specific around the UCF Apps platform here, and put that in, that this is what this request is, and tried to use the same branding that we have everywhere else for UCF Apps, just to kind of keep it consistent. But we do have, a note here that says, important before submitting this request, review the following. And so essentially we just start cross-linking a lot of things that are related to the knowledge base, or just general UCF Apps information, because sometimes folks just want the general, try to understand a little bit more about UCF Apps. If they're looking for software that's not, that maybe that's on their own PC, we've had that happen before. We include the software request in here as well, which takes them to another ticket that shows them how to put in a request to say, install a piece of desktop software on their work PC. We have, common questions and how-tos. We want to make sure that they check out the knowledge base first. Again, the articles are, I've had a few people tell me they're helpful. I hope they're helpful. This is really going to get them there and have them help them help themselves. And then if it's not working, we have the incident. So basically we're trying to route things to the teams that will help them more, or to the knowledge that'll help them get up and running faster, right? We figure that some people will read this and maybe some won't, which is okay. So we've spent some time on here to try to bake in some logic that shows up based on what they choose to kind of help point them in the right direction. And I'll show you what I mean in a second. So you got me, right? I'm putting this ticket. What role best fits your request? So one of the things that we get, usually students are generally requesting help with UCF Apps because they're having an issue using it. This apps request is really more for faculty, and you'll see why, because they're more for more advanced requests like adding software to UCF Apps or consulting about UCF Apps, or we have some limited license apps like MATLAB and others that we have to add a roster of students to a security group so that they can access an app. And so these are all functions that typically are asked for by instructors or administrative staff, and students typically don't or they're not asking for those, or if they are, they're asking one-off, hey, I want MATLAB for my for my PC. And really what we want to do is steer the students towards their instructors and have the instructors ask for that on their students' behalf in their course, so that we can log it, so that we can add more students to it, and that they have permission to use that application. So if they choose student as an option here, basically what happens is it puts a red box around here and it points them to all the general resources about UCF Apps. So obviously, thank you for your interest. Did you know that many of the apps are already available to you? They may not know that, for example, SPSS is available to everyone. They don't have to ask for access to use SPSS. It's already available to everyone. So they may just need to go to apps.ucf.edu and log in, and then they'll have it. Or if they're having an issue using it, maybe it's because they're having issues with installing the client or using the data, right? If they go to the knowledge base, they'll be able to have those articles on that. Or if it's broken, again, if it was working but now it's not, they can submit an incident. And then we put a little bit of information here about speaking with your instructor and letting them know that they're interested. If they're interested in using UCF Apps, they would submit on their behalf. So basically what I said before. And the other thing that we've done is we basically have it to where if they do order, try to submit the ticket anyway, they can't. And so what happens is, again, it's just a reach out to your instructor so they can submit this request on your behalf. So we really just try to steer the student to talk with the instructor if they're trying to add anything to UCF Apps. So that pretty much, it doesn't have them, it diverts them or deflects them to other options that are available to them. They can submit an incident if something doesn't work, but really encourage them to reach out to their instructor to talk with them first before they submit a request. When you get to the faculty member part, so I'm just going to pick, I'm an employee and I'm with, what am I with? I'm with ISO. And ISO, that's the easy one because there's only one. Maybe there's a couple. But so I'm with this group. And now I get this other box here that says, what's the nature of your UCF Apps request? And so this is where we can start looking at, okay, now I can choose some different options that the UCF Apps team can help me with. And so again, if it comes up here and it says UCF Apps, these are very much like, okay, I'm getting this, I'm trying to submit this ticket, this is my problem. UCF Apps is working for me and now it's not working, right? So what that does is it basically says, please submit an incident, and they can't submit the ticket. They have to click on the link to submit the incident. That way we can go through the queue. It's a higher priority. We can help them get going. If we have to make a problem out of it, we can do that. And it gets to the right people faster than just a general, a request on UCF Apps. This is how you would, basically we kind of set this up. So if someone said, basic things, you can kind of see, I would like to learn how to install UCF Apps on my computer or work with files in UCF Apps. Guess where this goes? We provide helpful docs for these things and go to our knowledge base. And so we try to, and then we say, you may be able to help yourself without submitting this request. And so what we then say, if they try to order, this is another one that doesn't show up. Basically, it kind of encourages them, again, go to the knowledge base. If you have questions, then just choose one of the other options and we can go from there. But we want to just call out that there are those documents available to them and they may not know they're available. So we want to make sure it's very explicit when they choose that specific request. Okay, So then all the magic is changes for these other ones. These are actually all pretty much the same thing, but you can see the most common things that we get are, again, new software on UCF Apps. Let's say we're actually working through an engineering software right now. We have to vet it to make sure it's licensed right, make sure the vendor's okay with it, to make sure there's enough the license servers available, a variety of other things that the UCF Apps team has to do. And so this one is a legit request for that. And so what we do is we just ask them to provide some additional information, and then Rob or someone from the ES team will follow up. And then this is another common one, is if we have, say, Mathematica or MATLAB or others that have a limited license software, and adding a class roster, basically we just encourage that they submit the class roster through here, and then we can either work through the team or work through the desk side zones to get them added to there, as long as they are eligible for the license for whatever software it is. So that's another valid reason there. And then we just have a catch-all, a couple of catch-alls here, just in case that someone responds and they just want to talk about UCF Apps. Maybe they just never heard of it, they don't know what it is, or I have a new application. Right now I'm having a consult with a faculty member about using R. So we're just just kind of general consultation. A lot of it's just evangelizing the platform and letting them know it's out there for a solution for them. And so a consult, again, same thing, just an open box of text, and then same thing for other, same thing. So and then basically once they submit that, this goes right to the team, and Rob, Chris, and I, every week we look at these requests and we kind of say, okay, how can we, what can we do here to prioritize it? Some of the requests are already getting done by Rob by the time we we meet that week, because they're adding new apps. And really the timeline, it depends on adding apps, or adding rosters are pretty easy as long as we can confirm they can use the software. It's pretty quick, but the software really depends on the type of software. It could be a very quick and easy just install, like a lot of freeware, or it could be something more complicated that takes more time. It really just depends on the situation. And so that's the UCF Apps request. You submit that, and then basically someone from our team follows up from there. So I think that I've made it through most of my topics for today. So basically what we want to do today is just really high level, what is UCF Apps, take you through a couple of different places and things that, resources that students and faculty have access to. We wanted to show you the knowledge base and let you know that there's, some really good resources available for that, that might, again, help you help others and help them help themselves. The incident, for things when the things aren't working, go ahead and submit the incident, and then the UCF Apps request for things that are a little bit more complicated, or consults, or adding new apps. So with that, I mean, really the biggest thing is I think, kind of just reminding everyone that we're all in this together, and that this service is going to be a campus-wide service, or it is a campus-wide service, and with all the things that are going on around remote learning, I really do think UCF Apps is going to take a front seat. And so, the more that we can educate and help you help the folks you support, the more successful you'll be, and the more successful they'll be. And so that was really, kind of the point of the webinar today. And so, are there any other questions around UCF Apps? Any last questions or thoughts before we adjourn for the day? All right. Well, thank you.